look at implementing Harkn within an organization, we're trying to activate voices, right, as a listening organization. So, and in the example from last month, we had broken it down into these 3 main sections around our planning. So as we launch, we look at adoption, and then adoption becomes an ongoing thing that we're, trying to build on. But initially it's adoption. Then we're boosting and maintaining participation. So ensuring that although people are registered, that they're still using it and, using it regularly, and that we're getting lots of feedback, because more voices provide a clearer picture of what's going on in your organization. So that's phase 2. The stage 2. And then the third stage is insight-driven change. So how are we taking the feedback we're getting from our people and ensuring that it's, being heard by the right people, and that, change is happening off the back of that. So that's just the context for the example. And now I will run through the planning. So for those of you who that didn't attend last month, we will provide the link to show how we came up with this. But this is an example from the last month's session. And it's basically, I know it's probably cognitive overload for someone who hasn't seen it, because last time we went through it quite slowly and filled it all in, but this is just what I wanted to show. So you can see across the top, those are our focus areas. So adoption, boosting and maintaining participation, and then insight-driven change. And then across the left-hand side is awareness. So those are people who are not participating yet. Discovery, our light touch people. Exploring, our medium touch people. And championing, our high touch people. And then we mapped out the activity to just make sure that regardless of the stage we're focusing on or the people we're engaging, that we don't have any gaps. So we're intentionally delivering on and impactfully delivering on our objectives. But I just wanted to show you here. So in terms of planning, using your engagement network groups to plan, so awareness, word of mouth, using your champions. So I've just circled all of the engagement group mentions here in the activities. So you'll see that there's lots in championing. But so training for line managers, feedback from line managers on topics. There's lots of line manager things happening here. There's lots of champion things happening here. So it just allows you to weave in, like making sure that you're using your engagement groups, network groups effectively, but you can just weave them into your planning. Now, as I said before, I have a timeline with my activities, my engagement activities, including communications, and the first phase is planning, then onboarding, then embedding, right? And on each one, I have specific activity lines that name each of the groups: the innovators, early adopters, early majority, late majority. Now, what do those activities look like? So I have done a specific example for Harkn, just to show you what, because the example I gave you from before is very general. It was from that Changeology PDF that I found, which I found really helpful. I found it years ago and I used it a lot, and I'll share with you, but I wanted to give really specific ideas of what that could look like. So for example, engaging innovators. So the first point, I won't read all of it, but I'll just pick some from each one. So the first one I wanted to talk about was innovators, because people often say, well, how do I find them? If you just start asking around, or you could even put an email out to line managers or business area heads, or whatever makes sense for you. If you just put out an email and say, we're looking for people who are, doing innovative things in X area, whether it's employee well-being or listening or, whatever you might be delivering on, immediately people will be like, oh, yeah, that's Ellie. David, definitely. it will not be hard to find them. You'll just have to ask, because everyone knows who their go-to person is. Like I worked a lot on business change with digital transformation, and I'll tell you, it was not hard to find the techie people in different groups, because I just asked around and they were like, oh yeah, I mean, it was immediate. Everyone knew exactly who that person was, right? So it's not hard to, they're not hard to find. You just need to ask around. So for example, so identifying innovators. And again, usually they're already doing some really interesting stuff. So there's loads to work with there in terms of planning and having them help with the planning. Onboarding. So you could do like a sign up list, a limited slot sign up list to have an early viewing or demo of, Harkn or something, because people know it's coming, right? Because they've already heard that it's coming, and to get a sneak peek, you'll get quite a good list of people who are the eager, interested people, and you can then take that early demo list, email list, and then reach out to them and just say, hey, would you be interested in being a Harkn champion? And the answer will probably be yes. And then they're people who love supporting people in their area usually, and have influence with people in their area. So you can, train them to, respond to common objections if people aren't sure about using Harkn, or, you can ask them, when they do use it, to role model behavior within the platform by, engaging with people's comments right away so they feel heard. It also helps other colleagues to feel confident in responding as well, and it creates, more avenues for dialogue, that type of thing. So phase 2 continued. So this is the early majority part. So I like to do something called catalyst events. So we often, in the back of our mind, and whether this is about digital skills or sustainability or listening or our well-being, we always have things in the back of the head. They're like, yeah, I should really do, X. And you have the best intentions, but you never actually do it. So I try to promote events that get people to actually go, oh yeah, this is an opportunity for me to do it, and everyone else is doing it, so I'm going to do it. And it works pretty well. Like I've done it with sustainability in the past, where we did a sustainable commuting challenge, and so many people were like, oh, I kept saying I needed to figure out how to bike to work, and and it was the opportunity to do that. So yeah, so creating a challenge or a community event, that type of thing, can get people actually up and doing things that they've been thinking were a good idea but just haven't done. Right, phase 3. So this is the late majority. So this is really about focusing on it being a social norm, like that, Harkn just is the go-to place for, to safely provide feedback. Like it could be that you weave into your communications if there's a change happening, or maybe there's redundancies happening. You could say, you can always go and share how you're feeling on Harkn, or if you need support, you can on Harkn, you can raise your hand and ask for support, well-being support. So anyways, it's just sort of like making it part of, your everyday work and everyday ways of working. And this is the only time that I ever actually say to respond to criticisms from laggards. So you're responding to criticisms from laggards, but it's for the benefit of the late majority, because the laggards sometimes are in the ears of the late majority, who are, the fourth most risk-averse group. So, for example, with Harkn, often it's anonymity. People are like, is it really anonymous? And so and it really is anonymous. And so we have loads of stuff that we've put together that people can share to help, people feel more comfortable and for it to feel less risky. So anyway, so those are just some examples, so you can see a real example of how these can be used. Now, just to wrap up, because I've